Welcome to Innovator Insights, where we explore the minds shaping the future of tomorrow's leaders. In this episode, Scott sits down with Lee Mandel, serial entrepreneur, technologist, and CEO of XSponse. Lee shares how his company's AI-driven PoE ecosystem is transforming school safety by automating emergency response, reducing human error, and giving first responders crucial seconds when they matter most. Let's dive in.
You're often described as a serial entrepreneur. What drives you to consistently build and innovate in new fields?
So I've been an entrepreneur my whole life. I started out with several technology companies back when I was in high school, actually. Kept on moving and growing, sold my first company at 20 years old. Got into technology once again with my second company, which was actually a startup company that was building websites. So I was excited to build web development software and create products for people. One thing led to another. We started getting into the security space, and then we became a really unique integrator. But what drives me and motivates me to keep growing and expanding is really what can I do better, what can I enhance, and learning from one career and moving it to the next. My prior life was an integration company, and I said, how can I make the integrator's life easier? And then I became a manufacturer selling to the integrators. So that's kind of the natural progression when it comes to entrepreneurship.
Well, terrific. Thank you for that answer. And welcome to the Innovator Insights podcast. I'm Scott Fisher. I'm in New York today. My guest is Lee Mandel. So welcome, Lee. Where are you joining us from today, Lee?
Today, I'm actually in New York as well.
Oh, there you go. I know you're often traveling about, so I wasn't sure where you were today. So you gave us a little bit of information about yourself, which is terrific, but maybe you could provide a little bit more as far as what you're doing these days specifically and what company you're with.
Sure. Thanks for having me on, Scott. Like you mentioned, Lee Mandel, I'm the CEO of XSponse. XSponse is a really unique company, which we're going to talk a little bit more about today. It was based on the foundation of understanding what integrators wanted when it comes to school safety and security. You know, we saw there had to be a simpler way to deploy technology in schools. We worked with schools for so many years at my prior integration company. And the challenge was, how can we automate the response, automate the technology? So we decided to build a really unique PoE ecosystem. And everything we're going to talk about today and everything that's part of XSponse is all Power over Ethernet technology that self-deploys itself using an AI engine.
So now the XSponse's new AI security ecosystem, it's been getting a lot of attention. So can you walk us through what makes this platform a next generation solution compared to the traditional security systems?
Yeah, for sure. So you see so many schools and so many public gathering spaces are putting in, whether it's cameras or card access, fire alarm systems, burglar alarm systems, lockdown systems, door ajar systems. But a lot of these systems are so complex to integrate and install. They all have different requirements, different cabling, and they're all dependent on one another. And if one component fails, the whole system fails. And when we're dealing with life safety components, we want to make it easy and simple for the integrators. We also want to be able to deploy it in the masses. So when we built XSponse, we built it off what we call our ART technology, our automated response technology. And that technology allows us to self-deploy the technology within XSponse. So we have all different series of devices, from our shield devices to our digital display devices, all the way to our panic buttons and our strobe lights. But the key is, how do we make security technology work on a day-to-day basis and have a place in an environment, a mass gathering environment, where it's not just used for the big day? So the XSponse ecosystem is exactly just that. It's used on a day-to-day basis, whether it's to make announcements over a PA system or monitor temperature or humidity or checking for vape or bad particles. It's used on that day-to-day basis. And then when the incident happens, God forbid, we're able to put it into that emergency mode, whether it's with our wearable devices that staff wear or our X Shield, to be able to activate that emergency and create a series of events automatically and fire off different actions. We basically call this our triggers, actions, and events. So triggers plus actions equal our events that we create.
Okay, so I'm assuming that your technology now, in theory anyway, reduces the likelihood of points of failure or improves the likelihood that in an emergency situation, your system is going to work as intended.
That's the key. We all rely on networks, and network topologies have really become a part of everyday business, whether it's a school district, a commercial facility, a hospital. Everything lives on the network. Back in the day, integration was really not network based. There was maybe one point on that security network that hit the network. But now we find all these endpoints are living on the network. PoE ports are becoming more and more cost effective to utilize. So we said, why
Mhm.
not take advantage of a try and intrude environment, the network, and be able to hang off that rather than having standalone technology. So all these different endpoints, all these nodes communicate with the network using PoE or PoE plus, and they're all monitored through the network as well, and they're all independent of each other. So there's nothing about cutting a wire and 10 devices go down. It's all home runs right back to the network switch, and every device gets an IP address. So we're easily able to deploy, manage, and maintain the system.
Yeah, I mean, if you can have your refrigerator tell you when you need to order milk, I would think that you can put that technology to better use than that, right?
100%.
All right. So now your career is obviously focused a lot on school safety. It's a topic that's tragically front and center in our national conversation. So, can you share what first drew you to this critical issue?
Well, my prior company, as I said, I was an integration business, and we focused on really anyone that needed cameras or card access or any technology. In 2012 was the tragedy in December of Sandy Hook Elementary in Connecticut, and I'm based out of New York at the time. And when that happened, it really hit home with me. And I spoke to several school superintendents and administrators in New York, and they said to me, there has to be a better way to automate all the different processes that we have to go to during the lockdown. I always say you don't want to have to pull out the checklist and say, what do you do first, second,
Yeah.
third? And
Yeah.
then fast forward a couple of years to Parkland, the tragedy that happened. And again, the same thing happened over and over again. And I had the opportunity to speak to some of the families from Parkland, got to become very close with two parents in particular, Ryan Petty and Andrew Pollock, who both lost their daughters in that tragedy. And we got together and we said, how can we speed up the response time? How can we put the tools into the first responders' hands and also put the tools into the staff's hands? And that's when we created this latest technology, which is XSponse.
Okay. So now a recent news story highlighted a school district that's using XBONS to provide real time live streams to first responders during a lockdown. So, what does this kind of technological integration mean for police and medical teams in a crisis situation?
So it's all about giving them seconds and minutes potentially in a response time. An average active shooter incident is over and under 2 minutes. So if we can
Wow.
shave a few seconds, the percentage that we're increasing the response time is significant. One of the challenges we found is schools have had cameras in the hallways for many years, but we've
Hmm.
never actually had eyes into the classroom where the events unfortunately are typically taking place, mainly due to privacy concerns and issues like that. So when we developed our X Shield and our X Display devices, we put a mechanical shutter in them, patented actually, that closes when they're not in use, and only when activated, if chosen, will the mechanical shutter open. The advantage of that is we're giving the staff, the teachers, the students privacy when the cameras are not needed. And in the event of that emergency, the shutters open in milliseconds, sharing that information with whoever they want, whether it's on-site security, first responders. Additionally, what we've been asked to by the first responders is how can we locate the incident quickly? So
Mm.
using the X Shield device, the staff in the classroom can touch the screen to determine if they're safe, they need medical attention. And we'll also have a wearable device that the staff wear that holds their cards that are typically used to get in the building, that upon being activated will track exactly where they are within 4 feet of the building on a map and share that with first responders. So it all comes back to speeding up the response time. Like I said, seconds matter, seconds save lives.
Yeah. So a couple of quick questions. You brought up a few points I have some questions about. So with the shutter, is that on all your cameras or is it only on the ones that are in the classroom? In other words, could you possibly have a camera in a space that you might want the shutter engaged so that you can't see something, but at another time during the day, maybe an event is taking place in that space that you want the camera to be active without having to activate the response system? Is it possible to manually engage those cameras?
That's a great question. So we have three devices that have the cameras in them. We have our X Shield, which could be in a hallway, but typically in a classroom. We have our single-sided display and our dual-sided display. The single-sideds we typically find in classrooms. The dual-sideds would typically go in hallways. Everything's customizable through the Guardian platform. So you can program the shutters to always be open, always be closed, have them event-driven. And if you choose to have them event-driven, you can create an event that will, for instance, say, hey, we have an event in the gymnasium, we want to close the shutters and only have them open in an emergency, or we want to schedule it where after hours, if we're renting out the gymnasium, we don't have that same need for privacy, so we want it open all times. So it can be put on a schedule and mechanically controlled through the Guardian software.
Yeah, that's great because once it comes to something like a basketball game, and that's the one that comes to mind for me, where there's some there's often crowd issues with the people attending the event, not the people playing the event, the various parents and people. So it'd be nice to have the opportunity after school to say, leave that camera on in the gym. But during the gym day, when it's the normal traditional classroom, you obviously don't want that space recorded for privacy reasons.
Exactly.
So now my next question, though, is you brought up the point. I'm thinking about the teacher wearing the lanyard for the swipe so that he or she can get in and out of all the different spaces in the building that they have been given access to. And you indicated that there's essentially a holding device or a carrying device that will also activate or can activate an emergency response. Is that correct?
Yeah, so what we wanted to do when we designed the X wearable series is we said, let's not give them a separate device to wear around their neck.
Mhm.
Let's give them a device that holds the actual badge. Because most schools, most staff members, commercial buildings, hospitals, they all have their identification badge. And they typically have a plastic holder that goes on their waist or around the neck. So we said, let's put the technology inside of the holder so that they're always going to have that badge with them. So we literally put our chip inside of that, added a button to it, a vibration module. And when they hit that, we activate a trigger in the system and can track within 4 feet of their location.
So it's a passive device unless it's activated. Is that correct?
Depends on your programming. So we have some staff members or some schools that have said, hey, we want to track people all the time. And others that say, we only want to track in the event of an activation. The typical method is we have 2 versions of this wearable. We have the chargeable and the non-rechargeable. The non-rechargeable has a 3-year battery life. It's typically given to our staff members and only tracks when you activate it, but it does check in twice a day to make sure it's online. We then have the rechargeable versions that are typically given to visitors when they enter a campus, and we can then program when we give the visitor that badge where they're going within the building, and using our wayfinding technology, if they go outside of that geogrid that they're supposed to go to, we can send an alert, vibrate the badge, or even let security know.
Well, that leads to my next question, the one about privacy and the staff privacy. What happens when the school day is over and the staff member leaves if they're still wearing that device? Are there devices in the marketplace? I mean, I'm assuming your system stops tracking them when they leave the geospace, the geofenced area. Are there devices out there that could be used to track those people without their knowledge, or is there technology that prevents that?
So the nice thing about the technology in the badges, the wearable series, it uses Bluetooth LE, Bluetooth low energy. So the Bluetooth low energy has a very small radius of where it actually transmits from. So once they leave the campus, it will stop transmitting. But additionally, 99% of our customers do not have the devices transmitting unless they hit the emergency button to activate it. So if they're not hitting that button, it will not transmit anything. And if they go home, they don't have to worry about their kids hitting the button because it's outside of the range. We
Right.
also just recently released an outdoor version of the device that will work on school fields, but we use GeoGrid technology to be able to block that off with a geofence so that people going outside of that field area won't be able to set off that alert and won't be tracked.
Yeah, I just know teachers are sometimes under the misconception that everything they're doing is being tracked. Some teachers are even afraid to, take out their personal cell phones while they're in school, let alone join the BYOD network because they feel like everything is being tracked. They call it. So, there's oftentimes unnecessary concern about that. So I wanted to make sure that, obviously your products have managed to take care of that, and so that there is no need to be concerned as well.
Yeah, 100%.
Terrific. So now, you know that in a crisis, okay, human error can be a major factor. So the technology that you've designed, was it built to minimize that risk and create a more automated and reliable response?
Yeah, so again, we call it the automated response technology. We base everything on muscle memory. Speaking with parents, speaking with teachers, speaking with students who have survived incidents like this, they always tell me when the incident happens, you're never going to be prepared for it. I had a family member actually who was in a mall in Florida and a lockdown message was called and they froze. It was a false alarm, but they went into the corner. Everyone huddled into the corner of a stock room inside of one of the stores. And that person was so nervous and they couldn't even think about taking their cell phone, dialing 911, unlocking it, using their Face ID. Again, mobile apps is a great additional tool, and we have a mobile application as part of XSponse, but we wanted to make it simple. If you look at what happened in Park Avenue in Manhattan a couple of months ago, the scenario there, The active shooter came in, killed the security guard. He didn't have time to take a phone out or press any buttons. So we look at our wearable to make it muscle memory protective, where they hit that button 3 times or whatever you program. It could be 3, 2, 1, 8. And when you hit that button, everything happens on its own. Or if our shield device that's in a classroom or in an office, you lift that cover, hit the device, it activates. You, again, don't want to take out that checklist and worry what you have to do, because in the heat of the moment, no one is going to think the steps they have to take.
Absolutely not. You're 100% correct about that. So now let me ask you then, are there options to program the devices to respond differently depending upon the number of times it was pressed? So in one instance, it might be, just a simple make sure all the doors are locked, that the building's closed, or whatever. There might be levels of activity that takes place based upon whether they push the device once, twice, 3 times. Well, once you don't want anything to happen, I'm sure. But 2 or 3 times, could be different. 2 versus 3 versus 4 might yield different responses. Is that the case with your equipment?
100% out of the box. The devices come with 3 functions built into them: a 3-button push, an 8-button push, and a 10-second hold. The most common use case is the 3-button push could be used to call nurses or medical assistants. And then 8 or more buttons, so just hitting it a limited amount of times, would be the initial lockdown or the official lockdown. And then typically a 10-second hold could be used to either have a third function or to clear the system. But that is fully customizable. All the devices are programmable from the cloud using the Guardian interface, so it can be changed at any time.
Yeah, I think that's really helpful because, sometimes there might not be as serious a situation, but the teacher could still use some assistance, and to have that device with them while they're maybe walking down a hall or in an assembly or something like that. They don't have access to the traditional PA system that they have in their class or whatever the situation. It'd be great to be able to just push a button X number of times and know that, somebody's been alerted and they're going to come provide assistance, whether the student's having a, meltdown of some sort or there's a physical problem. I think that's terrific. So glad to hear you've incorporated that as well. So let me ask you this. What's the most common piece of advice that you're giving to aspiring innovators these days and entrepreneurs, wannabe entrepreneurs?
It's a great question. You got to go with your gut. If you have an idea and you believe in something, you got to pursue it and push forward. My prior company, I focused on being an integrator and installing technology. I met with many school clients through the years, and they told me, I wish I could do this and I wish I could do that. And I kept saying to myself, there has to be a better way. There has to be tools. And I knew my entrepreneurial career wasn't done when I sold my prior company. And it was just a matter of time till I had the opportunity to meet some technology developers who were able to partner with me and build the technology. But it could be overwhelming, after having a company for 19 years, selling that company and saying, all right, how are you going to start from scratch again? And I said to myself, my wife, who said, there's no way I'm going to enjoy as much as I did in my prior company. It's starting from scratch again. And here I am a year later, and it's like nothing ever happened. It's like I've been doing this for 10 years. So if you're an entrepreneur, you're truly always going to go out there and push, and you got to go with your gut and take chances and really just push towards success.
That's great advice. So now, if you could look maybe 5 to 10 years into the future, okay, obviously you're building a company from the ground up, but looking 5 to 10 years into the future, what does the ideal school and the public space look like in terms of safety and security? And maybe how would your company either guide that or be impacted by those changes?
That's a great question. When you're a technology company, you got to go with the times. You can't go against the grain. And, I can tell you from my old company, we were an integration company. Like I said, we were more of a security company. The world of security companies is much different now. All security companies are almost IT companies. So everything is moving towards technology. The whole world. When I started in schools, especially, I was working with facility directors, business officials, superintendents. And towards the end of my prior career, I was only working exclusively, or I should say exclusively, 99% of my client base was dealing with communication with the IT departments and the technology directors. And that just shows how technology is migrating. So I feel with XSponse, we're at the forefront of the future of how we're going to be utilizing these PoE networks for everything, whether it's lighting, communication, transportation, any sort of technology is going to go through these PoE networks. I think it's staying in touch, seeing what's going on. I also see the use of AI is going to be tremendous. There's all sorts of negative connotations about AI and a lot of positive as well. I think some of the positive we're seeing is how we can learn an environment and make modifications on the fly. And we're utilizing that every day in what we build. But truly for XSponse, the sky's the limit, and we're going to keep on developing hardware. We have no constraints. We have no restrictions. When you're the manufacturer, you can do anything you want. And that's what I'm so excited about.
Yeah, so everything you just described ties directly into the theme of this podcast, which is, being an innovator. And that seems to be what you have to do. And you've been doing a great job of it, whether it's, moving on from the last company and products that you had there to the far advanced products that you're providing now, or whether it's just improving the processes themselves. It's all about, changing with the times. But, I guess, who was this? I guess Steve Jobs probably said, something to the effect, people don't know what they want. I have to tell them. Are you, not to be arrogant, but are you in that situation a little bit where you are telling the customers about something that they don't know what they don't know? So you need to educate them and say, look, this is what's coming down the line. You want to be ahead of it. And here's how we can help you.
100%. When I meet with customers and dealers, we show them the capabilities and we make them understand. And this goes back to 2004 when I started my last company. It's a matter of getting in front of the end user, whether it's our dealers that we sell directly to or helping the dealers support the customers, explaining to them what their challenges are that they may not even realize because they're so tied into the minutia of doing everything on a day-to-day basis, monotony of the same things over and over. We're able to really guide them and saying, there's a better way of doing this. And sometimes you just need to explain that to the end user. And if you do that, that's how you get this technology out there. That's how you get the level of interest that we're seeing with what we have out today.
That's great. Okay. So what's next for both you personally and for XSponse? I mean, you've talked a little bit about the possibilities with XSponse, but what do you see specifically next for you, or the next phase of XSponse?
So for myself personally, I'm really enjoying being the CEO of this company. It's a lot of fun. It's what I always dreamed to do. I'm kind of the man behind the curtains a little bit, managing the team and managing the operations, but I'm getting to do what I personally enjoy. And that's key for entrepreneurs. If you enjoy it, it's not work. I know that everyone says that's very cliche, but it's the truth. And I'm doing what I truly enjoy. I'm writing the software. I'm working with the coders. I'm not dealing with the customer service. I'm dealing with the things that I always wanted to do. And that's what makes it so much fun. So the future is going to keep going and going and going like this as long as we can. On XSponse's side, we're developing products every day. Believe it or not, we've developed 15 products from scratch in under 12 months. So 12 months from an idea to a drawing, to a mold, to plastic, to PCBs, to manufacturing, to deployment of products. And it's just so amazing how we can streamline this technology so quickly. And that's what we plan on continuing to do, adding more products to the suite, adding more features, listening to our dealers, listening to our customers. When we bring on a new dealer, which is who we sell to, we don't sell to customers, we sell to dealers. We bring that dealer on and say, we don't want you to just be selling this product. We want you to partner with us. If you have an idea, you have a feature that's going to help you win a bid, let us know and we'll build it for you. And I believe that our dealers really like the unique approach we're taking and having a partner, a manufacturing leg of their company, rather than just another vendor selling a product.
Yeah, I mean, that's the beauty of it, because they can come back to you and say, we need X, and you can say, okay, we can do that. Where, that's not always the case when you're dealing with other people manufacturing the equipment if you don't have direct access to the manufacturing process. So that's terrific. Lee, listen, it's always great catching up with you. I really appreciate you joining today. I'm very happy to see the success you're having with XSponse, and I'm glad to hear that, more importantly, that you're enjoying life these days.
Thank you. You as well, Scott. Great seeing you, and happy to come on again and talk more if you ever need me.
I'd love to have you back. Thanks so much. Make it a great day.
That's a wrap on this episode of Innovator Insights. A huge thanks to Lee Mandel for sharing his journey from integrator to innovator and his mission to make schools safer through technology that saves time and lives. If you enjoyed today's conversation, head to innovatorinsights.io to find more episodes and subscribe for updates on the latest in technology and innovation. And if you found this discussion valuable, please share it with a friend or colleague. Thanks for tuning in. See you next time.